Welcome to Channel AMAC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested in migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell on the side, so once all the updates and news, you'll be the first one getting all the inside. Now, the Department of Home Affairs on the 14th of January has posted a news in regards to the foreign interference, how Australian government is countering the foreign interference. Well, it's interestingly, first of all, it doesn't directly affect any visa policies. However, indirectly, yes, it does affect it, because if indirectly, and it's obviously a national interest that no country will really want their sovereignty to actually be interfered by any other state or nations. So obviously the government of Australia, this is actually not a new law. They have legislated back probably 6 or 7 years ago. I think that's when the Prime Minister was Malcolm Turnbull. They have decided to legislate a piece of law just to prevent any kind of foreign interference. So how it actually happened back then was obviously there has been a lot of donations from government and politicians is open to be donated by any Australians. However, if this donation is not coming from an Australian citizens, it comes from a foreign nationals. Is that acceptable? Is that an interference? So that's back then. Well, I think it was back in 2017 or 18, or perhaps some year before that. So the government of Australia had decided to legislate a piece of law just to have a protection to prevent and countering the actual interference of any national foreign national agencies. So they have the Home Affairs has actually posted out on the 14th of January 2025 in regard to this countering foreign interference in Australia, work together towards more secure Australia. Now, I'm not too sure why they post this on the 14th of January, because this law is already existed. I think it's more in regards more intensifying the between nations. So after the COVID, we understand what's happening in Europe and how those authoritarian states, for example, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, and some others, has been doing things secretly behind and with intention to actually interfere other nations. And obviously the clash between the United States and China has made this more intensified. Now, Australia is actually in the middle of this new so-called the Cold War. If you really go back to find the definition of Cold War, you probably will agree with me that the current stage of the world status is actually in a stage of Cold War. It's just the way that how it's fought. It's different because we have technology, we have social media, we're all kind of stuff, and we debating about TikTok, whether it's gonna be banned in United States, and how Trump has wanted to actually pause it and do something else. What about Elon Musk? Elon Musk has been trying to, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if he understands those kind of law to interfere some European nations, UK, also in Australia as well. So this is not something new. It's just getting more intensified. And that is why we're seeing this new news on the actual Home Affairs webpage, talking about how to counter foreign interference. And it's basically advising the Australian citizens to actually be more notable in regard to possible interference and report to the government. So it basically says here the Australian government is the launch of the counter foreign interference in Australia, working together towards more secure Australia. Now, what happened back right after COVID, Australia has been this is not interference, but being cyber attacks. Medibanks, Optus, and I think Vodafone or Qantas and some other government agency has been hacked by cyber attack, and that's all kind of different interference. In this we'll go into the definition of interference here, just for everybody to actually know. We set out the most risks for foreign interference the Australian government is doing to address individual organization to protect themselves. Now, what had happened in the past, I just wanted to give you a little bit of sense. Now, obviously, this is not directly affecting the visa system. However, there has been a very, very clear foreign interference into the Australian university. Now, whether or not this actually caused the reason that the government of Australia is putting on caps. Now, obviously, they're talking about the reason is more about housing, but there's also foreign interference. Now, whether this university or the Australian education system, for example, all these private colleges out there, are they actually interfering the actual system of education in Australia? You probably was 50-50, say yes, right? So back then, let's check this out. You may find this news. This is from CNN. There's everywhere. Australian court convicts a businessman planning of politically interfering for China in legal. First, this is back in 2023, December. But I think a lot of this stuff has been found over the past 4 or 5 years. This is not really a news. And that's just happening in Australia. It's also in Canada as well. So India alleged interference in Canada, was horrific mistake, Trudeau says. Now, this is back in last year. Now, if you're an Indian national, you may have, this news has been huge. Between the two nations, so this is not something new anymore. So I think that what's happening in the post-pandemic world, things just getting more and more intensified. Now, we're only talking about those English-speaking countries. Now, what about those countries that don't speak English, and between borders and borders, the Southeastern countries, Central Asia, all the way to the Middle East? What about the South Latin America as well? There's a lot of things happening, and obviously the reason one is Elon Musk is trying to, Anthony Albanese has basically stated that our law will stop Elon Musk interfering in Australian election. Now, I don't know if that can actually stop the owner of Twitter, the X platform, and I'm not too sure. Now, let's actually jump into the actual definitions, because there's a real sense and the differences between influence and interference. So I would like also to address this and just to go through this with everybody. I mean, this is not a straight visa policy video, but I think something like this obviously indirectly affecting the immigration system, that also affecting potentially your migration pathway, because if your country or passport is a nation that is doing something foreign interfering Australia, then what will Australia's immigration officer do? They will probably stress a lot more on assessing your application. Right, it's actually a fact. For example, there are some Iranians immigrant in Australia. Now, a lot of these people are good people. I've got some friends from Iran, original birth from Iran as well. However, what as a country Iran has actually been conducted and done over the past few years, obviously, as an Iranian, even if you're a scientist, you want to migrate to Australia, immigration officer is actually going to stress a lot more on assessing your application. I'm just giving you an example. What about if you're Russian, right? Australian government is actually stressed a lot more than assessing your application than compared to someone coming from, for example, Japan, right? So it's a fact there. So it's actually affecting the visa system here. Or let's have a quick read on this one. Foreign interference is when other countries try to secretly, so obviously they don't tell you, it's not open and transparent that they wanted to interfere. However, they are doing something. With the decision in other matters in Australia, they might be dishonest. So obviously you said, are you doing this in our land? They will say, no, we're not doing anything like that. Now, we have seen a lot of these conducts by the Chinese government. Are you doing something in the South China Sea? Oh, no, this is just, well, we're doing just patrol and things like that. And then, well, what did they do? They actually built a military base out of a little island there. So they're being dishonest, use unfair power and hide their actions. How about the Chinese government had suddenly banned the Australian wine exports and the lobsters? What is the reason? Well, whatever, they're giving out a reason. They're being dishonest and unfair in a way. It can harm Australian freedom and go against the best of our country. Foreign interference activity taken together for a government that involves a threat to an individual. So we have seen that being captured. I think there's Australian recently being captured by the Russian governments over the Eastern Europe. Hidden dishonest threat and corrupt intent to influence. So corrupting and intent to influence, that's exactly what we have seen on this case here. The businessman trying to corrupt by bribery the actual politicians, the Australian politician there. Right, to undermine national interests. It can happen alongside espionage, sabotage, and things like that. Threat that we face. So I'm not gonna go through this because it's, if you read the news, everyday news, you see what's happening there. How foreign interference happens involves a foreign power trying to secretly improperly interfere Australian society and advance the strategic, political, military, social, economical goal at our expense. It's actually covering a lot of sectors. So not just political, military, social. We see what's happening in the social media, and that's another reason the United States has legislated a law to actually ban TikTok, because TikTok might have the data. That's another thing, security of the data, people's privacy, and then sending out information that's interfering the elections. I think that's what happened in America. Economic goal, and that's economic goal. We'll talk about the lobsters and red wine to export to China. Those who take part of foreign interference try to shape Australian independent decision making and change the outcome. So what does that mean? That means those interfering activities is trying to change the nation's independent decision-making positions. So it's actually very hard to actually define here with what I wanted to read out here. It says foreign influence is different. Okay, influence and interference is totally different. Now, it's very important to distinguish the foreign interference from foreign influence. All government, including Australian government, seek to influence others in relation to issue of importance to them. Australia is not concerned about foreign influence activity that is open and transparent. So the key here, the key differences between influence and interference is that influence is usually an open and transparent, just right down there. But interference is what? It's usually dishonest, unfair, and hidden. They don't tell you straight away. It's not open. Again, it's not open. It is not transparent, but they have a hidden agenda just to undermine and alter the actual the decision-making power or the way how a nation should actually be. So again, just a little information here. I saw this one pops out from the Home Affairs website. I thought to have a little chat about this one and share with you as how, we probably never thought about how this will actually affect our visas, but as a reason recent years and a couple of days to go until the Donald Trump sworn in as the president of the United States. I think the world will get a lot more intensified. We already seen that before. We're seeing how Canada is and Greenland, the relationship between United States and also Mexico, and a lot more other things will get this whole world more intensified, and we will probably see a lot more stuff coming up. Especially like for example, Elon Musk has trying to do something and say something and interfere in a way. I'm not too sure if Elon Musk is doing it as influence or interferes, because he's doing openly. It's not. It's again, if we really stress to actually see what he's actually doing, he's not doing it in a dishonest way. I'm not too sure how you actually, if he's open and transparent and speak something out. How would he actually be dishonest, or he's pretty open. Whether or not it's unfair, well, if it is unfair, it wouldn't be really that open. Not too sure how Anthony Albanese actually defined that one there, but you probably will have other thoughts. Should you have more question, query, more than welcome to leave a comment right down below, and I see you next video. Goodbye.